Hello everyone, hello everyone. Oh God, okay. Now usually when we go about something, we usually go about it a simple way. Now let's put this into our world terms as students. Let's have point A and point B. Your job is to calculate the distance of this trip and the details and drive it. First scenario, you put into Google Maps, you find a bit of slope, look at the distance, air resistance, do a bit of physics, and you start driving and everything works out well. The math works out, the physics works out, the Google Maps works, and everything goes fine. And if this is you, well organized and well executed, well, good for you. The second involves something a bit different, just a bit. Instead of doing it right away and start driving right away, you decide to watch Instagram Reels for about 2 hours, and around dinner time, you suddenly realize that you're way behind schedule, you need to get going, and by the time you start going, you realize you have to suffer twice the pain, drive twice as fast, possibly miss breakfast tomorrow morning if you don't work hard enough, and even if you do get some sleep, you'll end up looking like a raccoon the next morning. And yes, this, my friends, is called procrastination. And although a lot of us suffer from this, I, in fact, didn't have neither of these scenarios in my life. In fact, my scenario went something like this. Let's add two characters here. One is the overthinking side of me, and one is the reasonable side of me. Hey, can we get going now? Yeah, just let me check something real quick, just for the 6th time. Okay, go. We need to get moving, like, we're so behind. Yeah, also, I think we should get some gas. You know, just in case we run into some construction delays, some wildfires, a blizzard, a hailstorm, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, but the gas tank is pretty much full, if you ask me. But yeah, sure, we'll get some gas so we can get moving and you can stop stressing out. Okay, I also think we should take this other path. Oh, I know this is like the hypotenuse of everything, but maybe we should go like around it this way, since it just might be a bit faster. No, just go! Okay, something like that. I used to over-obsess and overthink about things to the point that I would end up contemplating myself that I found it increasingly difficult to execute or do anything. Now some of you might relate. Middle school in Canada is rather chill for students. It's rather relaxed. I never really prioritized my time because I never had the issue of time. I could spend as much time on whatever I wanted, and there would always seem like there would be more. However, in grade 9, I came to a realization that time was going to start being precious. And you know those 1 or 5 weeks throughout a year in which all your extracurriculars, all your academics just kind of line up perfectly and coincidentally into this one very compact and busy week? Well, I had one of those in October. That week there's a few concerts at school and outside of school, unit test or two, an application or two, not to mention a few volunteer shifts across Metro Vancouver that I knew that I was going to be doomed for. So the week before that week started, I planned everything out so I wouldn't be doomed. And I planned it out perfectly, sequentially. This will start here, this will end there, this was on this day, and this was on that day, and that work will go perfectly. Or so I thought. When that week started, after the science unit test, I decided to pull up Wikipedia. And although the Wikipedia article was about 100 swirls long, I decided to read the whole thing, and then I'm freaking out to the point that I overstudied for the test, and I did pretty bad. As for my bus routes that I used to go to volunteer, I decided to write the whole thing out on my hand, regardless of the fact that I took the same one every week. And as for the application for my volunteer, I rewrote it 7 times and printed it twice at the library, only to realize that the first one and the 7th one weren't actually that different. And by the end of that week, I was absolutely exhausted, and I knew that this wouldn't be a viable solution in the long term. But before I found a solution, another thing came up. And this thing is called an in-class write, and this was in grade 9. And for those of you who know what an in-class write is, well, good for you. And if you don't, grade 9s out there, you'll find out really, really soon. And for an in-class write, what happens is the teacher puts you guys all in a chair, gives you a random piece of literature from 500 years ago that you have no idea why it's even relevant at this point, and makes you write a whole essay on it. And in that room, you can practically smell the cortisone, and not to mention the pandemonium after the write where everybody screams, well, what's the theme statement? Yeah. So for my first in-class write, Ms. Kukluik set the timer to about an hour long. And during the first 15 minutes, everything was easy. I used my brain, I used my hands, and I put everything out on paper. However, around 30 minutes, I began to question myself. Perhaps this word is better than this word. It's more precise, it's more clear. Perhaps this quote is better than this quote. Perhaps it's more supportive. Perhaps this idea is better than this idea. Let's switch out these paragraphs. perhaps this essay is better than this essay. Let's push out these essays. But the thing is, this essay wasn't written yet. But that's what I did nonetheless. Around 40 minutes, these feelings that this essay wasn't good enough made me pull out my eraser, erase the entire thing because I didn't have any more paper for whatever reason, despite prepping so well. And yes, I rubbled the entire room, and the person next to me gave me a look and went, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm just changing my ideas for the third time." And when I handed that right in, the next week, I got a pretty good percentage. No, I'm kidding, I got a really bad percentage. Yeah, so that was the moment I realized something needed to change because high school was going to get progressively harder. Now you might ask, why do people have these overthinking issues? Why can't we just do things properly and organized as people in movies do, or as the table block schedule like businesses and corporations used to? Well, one reason I contribute this to is this mentality that we're often told to think heavily about when we are young regarding the morality, the responsibility, and the efficiency of our decisions. While this might be good in our childhood to foster us as good beings and not go from like a path that's straight to whatever this is, sometimes this mentality continues with us into our older years, and this causes this confliction that might be overthinking. The second reason might be due to technology. Before technology, we were forced to use our hands, forced to use our heads, and accept the products of our work as people. However, with the coming of technology, especially the one that does the thinking for us, we decide to put that trust into technology. And sometimes, when we lose that trust and put into technology, and we don't have technology to do the work, and when we have technology to do the work, we don't trust in ourselves to do it. Like, just take an example. Like, you probably had that feeling where during a test, you have a calculator, and although the equation is pretty simple, like let's say 10 plus 10, you add it together and in your head you're like, okay, are you sure it's 20? And you still gotta put it in and you find out it is 20. Well, good for you, but you just wasted 10 seconds that you could have written the answer. However, my mentality also worked around this idea of self-doubt and the fact that things were possibly more complex than they could be. I used to think about it, and I will prep for something extremely well, but only realize that even after the situation, something couldn't be fulfilled because things can always be better. So that caused a sense of self-doubt in me, that the things I did could have been better. And this self-doubt leads to an insecurity inside of me as I tried to complete the task. And this led to a distrust after the task. And this distrust only led to more self-doubt, more insecurity. And you can see how this is a loop. And in science, as grade 10 taught me, it's called positive feedback loop, meaning that the effects of a cause the cause to be amplified, if that makes any sense. Meaning that one basically builds on the other and the cycle just keeps getting worse. And therefore the imbalances, the mental imbalances inside of me only seem to make the mental imbalances worse. But I also realized that if this was a cycle, in order to break the cycle, all I have to do was stop one part of it. By stopping one part of it, either the whole cycle will come to a stop or the thing might start working backwards. So in April, there's another one of these busy weeks. I tried to fix this. And it's important that you're busy, because if you're not busy, like my middle school experiences, you won't prioritize anything and there's no point in doing this, because if you have the time, why not relax and sit back? And that week, every time I sat down to do something, I would force myself to think about the times, every time that I tried to do something and it didn't go as well and I'll feel unfulfilled like I talked about earlier. And instead, do it, put it to the side, and ignore it completely. And just hand it in and put it in Teams and not suspect anything to come back. And although the change wasn't profound at first, it did start working. By breaking one part of the cycle, one layer of distrust stopped, and everything began to work backwards. I gained a bit more self-confidence in my ability to do things and realized that things were more straightforward, and I often had the ability to do whatever was required. The trust led to less insecurity, more trust in myself, and the whole thing went backwards. Now, I'm not telling you to not think, because thinking is important. It's what we do as people, and if we didn't think, the world will be a totally different world that we see today. So the next time you're walking down the street and you get the urge to kick the person next to you for whatever reason, please don't act on impulse. Please still think a bit to some extent. A University of Michigan article from 2003 states that 73% of Americans aged 25 to 32 overthink, even labeling it as a national pandemic. And in younger generations, this is probably even more prevalent and probably even more higher in number. As today, in our modern society, we're so stimulated and so full of technology that we're expected to keep up with ideas of perfection and high expectations. And we question ourselves whether if we're able to actually meet these standards. But it's really not necessary. Sometimes we just sit down, sit back, make a plan, and follow it. Because Confucius once said, life is simple, but we insist on making it hard. So the next time you're adding something to your to-do list, don't overthink it. Write it out, plan the time, contact anyone you need to, and just do it. Thank you.